Okay, so you know that feeling, right? And
Mhm.
you're like, all right, today's the day I finally tackle that project. You've got your coffee, your to-do list.
And then, boom, distraction city.
Yes. And it's not even a fun distraction like, oh, I'm going to book a vacation. It's more like, did my Amazon package ship yet? I better check for the 10th time. And poof, the day's gone. So this deep dive, we're talking dopamine detox,
Hmm.
to figure out how to actually focus when everything's designed to make us, well, not focused.
This book really gets that struggle, that feeling of, I should be doing X, but first, let me just, it's like this constant negotiation with ourselves that usually leads nowhere good.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
But the book's saying it's not entirely our fault, right? It's
Yeah.
dopamine.
Right. It's like, think of dopamine as your brain's anticipation chemical. And here's the thing, it's not even about the actual reward, it's the wanting it, that little buzz you get just thinking about something potentially enjoyable.
So when I'm checking my phone every 5 seconds for an email reply, it's not the actual email. It's that little dopamine hit of anticipation.
Exactly. And the world we live in, it's built to exploit that system.
Okay, so how does this actually play out day to day? Give me some real-world examples.
Well, think about those notification badges on your phone, those bright red dots. They're not just informational, they're designed to trigger that dopamine response, keeping you hooked on the possibility of, ooh, what is it this time?
So it's like they're hacking my brain chemistry. No wonder I can't resist them.
Pretty much. And then you've got algorithms. The book uses this great example about watching basketball videos online. You watch one, it suggests another, suddenly you've lost an entire evening. That's the dopamine loop in action.
Oh, I've totally been there. But it's not just videos, right? It's everything. Social media, news feeds, even email.
It really is everywhere. And here's the scary part. All this constant stimulation, it makes regular tasks seem super dull by comparison. Our brains get hooked on those quick dopamine hits, and suddenly, things we know are important, like long-term goals, they just don't hold the same appeal.
So we're basically rewiring ourselves to crave the quick fix instead of long-term satisfaction.
Yeah.
That's kind of terrifying.
It's something to think about for sure. And it's why this whole dopamine detox idea is so important.
Okay, so how do we even begin to detox? Is this like a juice cleanse for my brain?
Not quite a juice cleanse. The book actually lays out 3 different approaches to detoxing, which I think is really helpful.
Okay, I like the sound of options. So what are we working with here? What are my choices?
So you've got the 48-hour complete digital blackout. It's like hitting the reset button.
A total blackout. Part of me is terrified, but another part of me is strangely intrigued. What does that even look like practically?
So it's about eliminating as many external sources of dopamine as possible. No internet, no social media, no video games, no sugary treats. Really anything designed to spike those dopamine levels.
Okay, yeah, that sounds intense.
It's not for everyone, but the idea is, by drastically reducing those external triggers, you give your brain a chance to reset and become more sensitive to, the smaller, more meaningful rewards in life.
So like if I'm not scrolling through my phone for 48 hours, what am I supposed to do with myself?
That's the detox part. Instead of focusing on what you're restricting, think about what you're making space for. Things like going for a walk, journaling, meditating, spending time in nature, reading a book, just things that nourish your mind and body without those constant dopamine spikes.
So it's about replacing the quick hits with activities that promote long-term well-being.
Exactly. And if a 48-hour blackout sounds too extreme, the book also offers a 24-hour option with a similar approach, kind of like dipping your toes in before diving into the deep end.
Love that analogy. And what about the third approach? What if I'm not ready for a full-blown blackout just yet?
That's where the partial detox comes in.
Okay, tell me more about this partial detox. It's already sounding like something I could get behind.
This one's all about identifying the biggest source of distraction in your life and just tackling that head on. Instead of trying to change everything at once, you're really strategically targeting the one thing that's having the most negative impact on your focus.
So if Instagram is my weakness, I might focus on limiting that specifically.
Exactly. Or if you're someone who's constantly checking email, maybe it's about setting specific times to check and respond so you're not letting it derail your whole day.
So it's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional with your attention.
Exactly.
I love that. This is starting to feel a lot more doable. But let's be real. Quitting something cold turkey that our brains are basically hardwired to crave, that's tough. How do we actually break free from those ingrained habits? So how do we actually break free from these habits that are so deeply ingrained in our daily lives?
Well, that's where the real work begins, right?
Mhm.
And it's all about intentionally building new habits that actually like support your goals instead of sabotaging them.
Hmm.
The book lays out this three-step process that I find really helpful. Identify, add friction, and start in the morning.
Okay, identify, add friction, start in the morning. Got it. But break that down for me a little. What does that actually look like, in real life?
So identify is about getting super clear, like crystal clear on what your distractions really are. And I mean really specific. It's not enough to be like, ugh, social media is a problem. We got to go deeper. Which platforms, when, what actually triggers you to open those apps?
So instead of just saying Instagram, I might be like, okay, I'm checking Instagram right before bed and first thing in the morning when I should be meditating.
You got it. It's about getting granular. And once you've identified those specific distractions, then you can start to add friction.
Friction. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting.
Right. So the whole idea is to make it just a little bit harder to engage in those bad habits. Like not impossible, but just enough that you have to actually think about it.
So like instead of having my phone right next to me at all times, maybe I put it in another room when I'm trying to focus.
Exactly. Or let's say you're always getting sucked into online shopping, right? Maybe you unsubscribe from those tempting email lists before the urge even strikes.
It's like building little speed bumps into my day to like slow down those impulse
I
decisions.
love that. Speed bumps. And that's the beauty of this. It doesn't have to be this huge, dramatic thing. Even small changes can make a big difference. The key is consistency.
Okay, so we've identified our distractions, we've added friction. What about start in the morning? Why is that so important?
So this step is all about setting the tone for your entire day. Before the world has a chance to throw all its distractions at you, you create this like low stimulation routine that allows you to connect with yourself and your intentions.
Okay, so we're talking meditation, journaling, maybe a walk in nature, anything that helps me feel grounded and focused before the chaos begins.
You got it. And again, it doesn't have to be complicated. Even just 5 minutes of mindful breathing can make a world of difference. The key is to create that buffer between you and all the constant stimulation of, life.
This is all making so much sense. But let's be real for a second. Even with the best intentions and all the strategies in place, there are going to be times when, we slip up. We're human, right?
Oh, absolutely. The book actually calls these dopamine relapses, and it really emphasizes that they're a normal part of the process. It's not about perfection, it's about progress.
Okay, good. That's oddly reassuring to hear. But if relapses are kind of inevitable, how do we keep them from totally derailing all of our progress?
I think it's about having both self-compassion and a plan. Remember, this is a journey, not a destination. You're trying to rewire years, maybe even decades of ingrained habits. So be kind to yourself when you stumble, which you will. The important thing is to just acknowledge the relapse, learn from it, and get back on track.
So don't beat myself up, just get back on the horse. Or in this case, maybe step away from the horse, which is probably my phone.
Exactly. And remember, the more you practice these techniques, the identifying those distractions, the adding friction, the starting your day with intention, the easier it will become.
This has been so helpful, and I'm already feeling a little more in control of my, attention span.
That's great to hear.
But before we wrap up, is there one, final takeaway, a nugget of wisdom you want to leave our listeners with? Something to really ponder?
Hmm. One thing this book really drives home is just how valuable our attention really is. Like maybe even our most valuable resource. Businesses spend billions, literally billions of dollars trying to capture and keep our attention. They know how powerful it is.
It's true. We're constantly being bombarded with messages and notifications and ads.
Right. So the question I would leave you with is this. What would be possible if you could harness that power for yourself? What could you achieve if you could direct your attention with real intention and focus?
So we're feeling empowered, we're ready to break free from these dopamine traps, but then
That's where the rubber meets the road, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Give me the practical stuff. How do I actually make this happen?
So the book gives us this three-step process, and I'm telling you, it's gold. It's identify, add friction, and start in the morning.
Okay, identify, add friction, start in the morning. I can remember that. But walk me through it. What do those actually look like in my daily life?
Okay, so identify. This is about getting real with yourself about your distractions. And I mean, really specific, not just like, oh, social media is my downfall. Nope, they got to go deeper. Which platforms? When? During the day? What is it that makes you pick up your phone and go down that rabbit hole?
Okay, so instead of just Instagram, I might say, I check Instagram right before bed when I should be winding down, and then again first thing in the morning when I could be meditating. but I'm not.
Exactly. You're getting to the root of it. And once you've identified those specific things, then you can start to add friction.
Friction. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting.
Right. It's about making it just a little bit harder to engage in those bad habits. Like, not impossible, but just enough that you have to actually make a conscious choice.
So instead of my phone living on my nightstand, maybe it charges in the living room.
Exactly. Or let's say online shopping is your weakness, right? Unsubscribe from those tempting email lists before you even get the chance to click.
So it's about setting myself up for success by making those bad choices just a tad more difficult.
Exactly. It's like putting those speed bumps in to slow down the impulse decisions.
Love it. Okay, what about start in the morning? Why is that step so important?
It's all about setting the tone for your entire day. Before the world and its distractions come knocking, you create this little pocket of low stimulation to connect with yourself and what you want out of your day.
So we're talking meditation, journaling, a walk in nature, those kinds
Yeah.
of things, right?
You got it. And again, it doesn't need to be complicated. Even just a few minutes of deep breathing can make a difference. It's about creating that buffer between you and the nonstop stimulation of, life.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay,
Okay.
but let's be real for a minute. Even with the best intentions in the world, we're going to mess up sometimes.
Yeah.
We're human.
Oh, absolutely. The book actually calls these dopamine relapses, and it stresses that they are totally normal. It's not about perfection, it's about progress.
Okay, good to know.
Uh-huh.
Because, yeah, I'm definitely going to have those moments where I slip up. So how do I keep those slip-ups from turning into a total derailment?
Self-compassion is key. And having a plan, remember, this is a journey. It takes time to rewire those deeply ingrained habits. So be kind to yourself when you stumble, because you will stumble. The important thing is to acknowledge it, learn from it, and get back on track.
Don't beat myself up. Just get back on that horse.
Yeah.
Or maybe in this case, put the horse, which is probably my phone, down and back away slowly.
Exactly. And remember, the more you practice these techniques, the easier it gets. It's like building a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
This has been so insightful. Thank you so much for breaking it all down for us.
My pleasure. It's been great chatting with you.
And to our listeners out there, we hope this deep dive has given you some practical tools to reclaim your focus and achieve your goals. Remember, even small changes can make a big difference. So start small, be consistent, and most importantly, be kind to yourself. Until next time, happy diving.